righty, how are we doing today, everybody? Good morning from the land of Korea. Yes, retired early, and so I have lots of time for health and fitness. Recently, I had another individual confront me talking about how one set, when doing exercises for strength and or hypertrophy, was far superior and better than multiple sets. And it was really interesting because I got a variety of comments from this individual who claimed that one set is better than multiple sets for those areas when it came to resistance weight training. Whether using free weights or machines or body weight, again, we're talking about resistance weight training. This also, to narrow it down a little bit, we're talking about untrained and trained personnel consisting of men and women. So, we're not doing anything like testing professional athletes and trying to apply that or misapply those testing results to everyday people like you and me. That's the important thing. So with this gentleman ended up claiming that one set is better for hypertrophy and strength because you can put all this intensity into the one set, and you can get work into that 95 or even 100% of your one rep max, which unfortunately, when you look at it, statistics show that when people operate at such high levels of intensity, it is a direct correlation between injury in the gym, injury during the workouts, muscle strains and muscle pulls, and even worse, rotator cuff issues and so on and so forth. So, it's the higher the intensity, the more risk there is. So that's why organizations like NASM or ISSA or the Big Ten, as far as personal trainer organizations that train people to become certified personal trainers, recommend that you operate within a 60 to 85% of your one rep max, preferably around 70. So that way you minimize the chances of incurring any injuries. You can still experience hypertrophy and strength gains, and there's that. So anyway, this gentleman ended up saying, there's making all these claims, and the one thing that I go back to is, okay, that's great what he's saying, because it was just like verbal diarrhea and blah blah blah. Look at me, I'm the example of why this works, and it's like, well, you got to prove it to me, okay? Where is the proof? Show me the meat. Where's the meat? Where's the beef? And it comes to a place of where it's like, okay, we can talk and say all that we want, but until you put up verifiable proof, it's not doing anybody any good. And so this individual, it's him and Han, and then he changed the topic and talk about hypertrophy. And then when I asked for proof on that, on studies or, anything done by disinterested third parties, and over, a long period of time, not just like 2 weeks or a survey questions, but where an actual study that was done with people with PhDs and doctorates in sports science and physiology and so on and so forth, that had multiple groups in the testing of whatever they're testing for, strict controls, strict testing and measurements, so that way we can show definitively what works and what doesn't. That's where this individual resorted to name calling and ad hominem attacks and so on and so forth. It was really interesting. It started out civil and mature, and then I just found it interesting that this person just kind of flew off the handle when I asked for proof. It's almost like I kicked his dog and beat his wife or something, So anyway, I graciously bowed out. But I've had other people message me saying one set is superior to multiple sets, and every single time, without fail, nobody can provide any proof. And so then they ask, okay, well, smart ass, where's your proof? Where's your proof that multiple sets are better? And it's like, oh, okay, so we're gonna run into this. This isn't going to be an all-inclusive video showing every single study to prove my point, but I'm going to show you some meta-analysis, which is the highest evidence of proof when we're talking about studies and so on and so forth. And we're going to look at some studies that involves thousands of people, hundreds of studies, and we'll just get to it. Okay, so again, I'm not going to go through everything, but I'm just going to give you a smattering of 5 different studies and meta-analysis where, hundreds of papers were looked at and so on and so forth, and actual testing was done, and where, workouts were done and routines for 90 days, 6 months, over an extended period of time with strict controls resulted in some very interesting results. So the first thing we're going to look at here is this right here, where it is a meta-analysis. Let me pull up my version so I can take a look at this. Now, this is single versus multiple set training for strength training, and this is a review and comprised of 55 effect sizes nested with 19 treatment groups with 8 studies. So whenever you produce proof saying, well, here's a study on as to, what is better, one study is good if it has strict controls, if it has good measurements, if it has, testing for placebo, has a control group, and so on and so forth. But when you start getting into like this stuff here, 19 treatment groups, and you have 8 studies, so it's a meta-analysis basically. And if you read through the entire thing in this study, it says the results, 2 and 3 sets are 40% better than one single set. Yeah. So all things being equal, and again, we're talking about, some progressive overload. We're talking about intensity, reps in reserve, your 1 rep max, the percentage that you're using, working to failure. 2 to 3 sets is 40% better than one set, than doing one set. So for the people out there that are saying, the Dorian Yates people or the Mike Menser, who was a great component or proponent of, the one set per body part, and really, it's kind of a disclaimer, because when you actually look at Mike Metzer's routine and read his book and his program, you will see that he would do warm-up sets, 1 to 2 warm-up sets, or he would do a superset, which consisted of 2 sets operating at about 70% of your 1 rep max, and then he did 1 working set. So in reality, what he ended up doing was 3 sets. Yeah, that just throws the whole thing apart when people say 1 set is better than 3 sets, because he actually did 3 sets. And it really wasn't 1 set. But unfortunately, people don't read his book or his program in its entirety, and they just kind of run off and they say, well, this 1 set is all you need per body part, and it's more superior than multiple sets. The science says different. The science says that if you do 2 to 3 sets, you're going to get 40% better than 1 set. If you do 4 to 6 sets per muscle group, you're going to get 20% better. So, and there's some more studies, but basically what we end up seeing with this, 19 treatment groups and 8 studies, so it's a meta-analysis showing that 2 to 3 sets are better than 1 set. And there's rest periods between your sets, and you can get really deep into the science of which is best for recovering your central nervous system so that you can do multiple sets and still have high intensity and experience greater gains in strength training that will result in higher PRs and meeting your goals if you have those strength goals. So that's kind of a thing right there of what we see. Another study that we're going to take a look at is this one right here. And let me pull this one up so I can read it. Now, this one here talks about single versus multiple sets of resistance exercise of meta-regression. Again, it's a meta-analysis of 92 effect size nested with 30 treatment groups and 14 studies. So This is getting big. We're not talking about one-off studies that are very questionable, that only have survey questions, that don't have any strict testing, or follow-up or controls or things like that. So what was the result of this? And what we ended up seeing here is that multiple sets were associated with 48% greater strength gains than a single set in both trained and untrained subjects. Read that again, 46%. And usually, the first one says 40%. There's other studies that said 46% is what they came to with their testing and evaluation of their subjects. So what we're seeing is basically around a 40 to 48% within that range, that multiple sets are greater in strength gains than single sets. Multiple sets per exercise were associated with significantly greater strength gains than single sets during a resistance exercise program. Significant. Now, that is a huge word. When we're talking significant, we're talking about, we're throwing out the low end numbers, we're throwing out the high, we're throwing out the placebo effect or any type of anomalies or variables that might be questionable, so we can get some hard data and some better precise information, more accurate and precise information. So yeah, multiple sets per exercise were associated with significantly greater strength gains than single sets during the resistance exercise program. Given the overwhelming evidence showing a superiority of multiple sets, further research should focus on dose-response relationships. For example, 1 set versus 3 sets versus 6 sets per exercise. But in this meta-analysis of 14 studies and 30 treatment groups of trained and untrained people, what we end up seeing is, multiple sets are associated with 48%. So we're looking, another study I read, it said it was 40%. The one previous was 46. This one says 48. So I would probably say somewhere average that out, and you're going to get better strength gains when we're talking about multiple sets versus 1 set. So for the people, and it's interesting because as soon as I post information like this, studies which are pages and pages, which have tons of references in the papers and so on and so forth. I mean, it gets into the muscle cross sections. It talks about muscle thickness. It talks about using MRIs. It talks about using DEXA scans and, measurements of the muscles themselves and just so many different things. When you throw this into the mix and say, well, these people have proved, and here is the proof, and here's how they measured and tested to show that it's better for strength gains and, or hypertrophy or whatever it is. The 1 set crew, those people don't have anything to reply with. So they often resort to name calling and things like that. And then usually what it'll end up happening is they'll say, well, look at me. And it's look at the people that I train. And it's like, that's not proof, because people have, you look at me, I have really good genetics. So there's a genetic component involved in this as well. There's a nutritional component that's involved as well. And just because you look good and you have some strength and you've got some hypertrophy, it does not mean that you doing 1 set is the most effective and efficient when it comes to strength gains or hypertrophy for that matter. That's why we have testing. That's why we have studies. And so whenever I post this information, and there's a lot more studies. I mean, I was going to do a video that had 20 different things like this. And I was like, no, that's going to be too long of a video and people are going to get tired of it. We're already about 15 minutes into this, and I'm only on number 2. So let's go to number 3. Now here is another study, if I can get this to come up. And this was another study where it had 48 subjects for 3 workout sessions a week for 6 months. Now this was an interesting study, even though it is an individual study. What I like about it is it has 48 people, it has 3 workout sessions a week for 6 months. So for the people that are saying, oh, you only need to work out 1 set 2 times a week, you can get superior strength and hypertrophy gains, compared to, multiple sets and multiple work. You don't need to do multiple workouts per week. You only need to do two. That's anything more than that is a waste of time. This here shows that they're just selling you wolf tickets. They're telling you a lie. They're hyping up their program and their routine, and it's not based on verifiable facts. That's what it comes down to. So in this, a 5-set group demonstrated significantly greater increases than the 1-set group for both exercises tested for 20 rep max, and significantly greater increase than the 3-set group in one of the 2 exercises tested for 20 rep max. The 5-set group had significantly greater increase than the 1-set group for 5 rep max for 3 of the 4 exercises tested, and significantly greater increase than the 3-set group in 2 of the 4 exercises. Now, this all results in showing multiple sets would result in greater changes in strength and local muscular endurance than single set training. Now, this is over a 6-month period, 3 workout sessions a week. And you have a group that did 1 set 3 times a week. So if you have somebody that is saying, oh, you only need to do 1 set per muscle group 2 times a week, and that's all you need, and it gives superior strength and hypertrophy, really what they're doing is telling you something that is absolutely not true. Now, does this mean that they are not going to experience any gains in strength or hypertrophy? No, they will, because if you are doing any type of resistance training and you're doing, let's say you're using progressive overload or linear, whatever, you're also going into intensity and you're operating at, let's say, 90, 95% or even 100% of your 1 rep max, which you can do with multiple sets with extended rest between those sets. And we'll get into that maybe a little bit later. But yeah, this shows that multiple sets are better. So if you have somebody who says only work out twice a week, doing 1 set per muscle group is better than multiple sets or working out, more times per week, this shows that they are lying to you. And their personal experience, yeah, they got some results. They got some hypertrophy. They got a little bit of size on them. They got a little bit of strength because it is resistance training. But the thing is, it's not the most efficient or effective according to the studies that we're looking at and the meta-analysis. So, yeah, there's that. And people for the 1 set group that look at, and quote Mike Menser, because he supposedly came up with the 1 set when actually it was 3 sets, but the 1 set workout, and saying that that is the best for hypertrophy and strength, 1 exercise per muscle group. Yeah, they don't take this into consideration. And then they also don't take into consideration that Mike Menser abused steroids. Okay, so we're not comparing apples to apples with, like you and me and every normal day people that are working, have a job, going to the gym to try to get in shape so they can have, a good life now and work towards longevity and, try not to get sarcopenia and have a longer retirement life, which is what we all want, and be in good condition. So when we're looking at this, it's really interesting that these people will go to such great gains and they'll point to Mike Menser, but it should be noted that Mike Menser didn't use this 1 set workout, once or twice per week to gain the majority of his muscle. So if you look at a timeline of Mike Menser and when he started working out and so on and so forth, what you'll end up seeing is that he spent about 10, maybe 12 years working out in traditional multi-set routines to get his muscular base and to get his strength gains. So in other words, what he ended up doing is he was using normal workout routines with multiple sets per body part, and there was a lot of them because back in the day when they were doing that, so the majority of his muscle came from doing multiple sets. And it wasn't until later, like 10 or 12 years later, that he came up with this 1 set routine, which, again, it wasn't even really 1 set. Excuse me. And what he ended up doing is saying, well, this is the bee's knees. This is how it works. At 1 set is superior to all other training systems and so on and so forth. But the other interesting thing, aside from the steroid use, is that he also used barbiturates or methamphetamines to fuel his workouts to speed him up. I mean, the average person isn't going to do that. Also, Mike Mentzer had one or two training partners to help him to do force negatives, to do stripped drop sets, or things like that, things that required a couple of training partners. Where the majority of people that go to the gym and do workouts on their own, you don't have one or two training partners. You don't have somebody that's going to lift the weight up for you so that you can do those force negatives, because you can't do any more of those repetitions. So I mean, it's just very problematic when people jump on the one set train and try to compare and say, well, Mike Mentzer, this is what is responsible for Mike Mentzer's physique, when actually it wasn't. Multiple sets during workouts, multiple times during the week, which he also did. He did the regular bro split, which was working out, 5-6 days a week. There were some people that ended up saying that, he tried push-pull leg and, have a rest day and then push-pull leg or whatever. Again, using multiple sets, and that was the reason. And we can see from the science that multiple sets have greater results for strength and hypertrophy, and that's where he got the majority of his muscle. Also, with a little help from a lot of steroids and meth and things, which he openly admitted to. So anyway, there's that. The next one we're going to take a look at is this study here, which is study number 4. And these were a total of 9 studies. 9 studies was used in this meta-analysis, and it ends up that the results that medium weekly sets and high weekly sets were more effective than low weekly sets. So in other words, what they looked at is they looked at using a low number of sets, again, multiple sets, but low number of sets, and saying, okay, well, we got low, medium, and high, and what is better for strength gains? Low weekly sets produce the smallest pre to post training strength difference. So it stands to reason that somebody who says that you only need to do one exercise per body part and you don't need to do multiple sets, this study here shows that, they're barking up the wrong tree. For the novice and intermediate male trainees, now this is very important because this is more applicable to what we're seeing in everyday normal life with people who go to the gym. The findings suggest that low weekly sets do not lead to strength gains compared with medium or high weekly set training. So, there's that too. People get mad. And it's interesting because, like I said, I can post, 20 different studies and references, and then I can even go deeper into that of showing and proving why multiple sets is better than one set for strength or hypertrophy. We're talking about volume. We can get into that aspect as well. What does volume have to do, and what is that, how does that result and play into strength and hypertrophy gains? But again, every single one of them says multiple sets is better than one set. So let's go on to the last one here. And let me pull this up so I can read it. And in this one here, this was a meta-analysis that took in 30 studies. 30 studies. And the results was higher resistance training volume of 28 to 30 sets per muscle group per week is associated with greater increases in hypertrophy compared to lower volume of 6 to 10 sets of muscle groups per week in both untrained and trained populations. This right here is an important and applicable study or meta-analysis of 30 different studies, taking all that information and running it through the mill, and scientists and researchers going over it the whole 9 yards and coming up to this determination, this conclusion. It's not a biased conclusion. It's like, let's see where let's see where the facts lead us. And this is the conclusion here, that 28 to 30 sets per muscle group per week has greater increases in hypertrophy compared to 6 to 10. So now let's look at this in regards to the one set group that say, oh, one set is better for hypertrophy. Yeah, this blows that out of the water. Let's continue on with the results. High loads, and we're talking more than 85% of 1 rep max with 1 to 5 reps and a long rest intervals of 3 to 5 minutes results in more strength gains than obviously the one set group. Moderate loads, 60 to 80% of the 1 rep max. Now, this is really important here because this right here, 60 to 80%, is what most trainers and training organizations recommend for their clients because you're staying out of that high risk zone for injury, which usually occurs after 80%, with 6 to 12 reps and short rest intervals of 60 seconds. And this elicits a greater metabolic response and results in more hypertrophy. That says it all. I mean, we're talking a meta-analysis of 30 different studies. And, there's more. There's more of this information out there. So when I talk to people and I share the information that I have learned when I did my body recomp, when I went from 210 to 263, and then I cut down to 245, I use the tips, the techniques, I use science-based information to build my routine to reflect and put me in the ballpark. So when we're talking about, if I'm dealing with hypertrophy, that's why I recommend 6 to 12 repetitions. Other studies show 8 to 15 repetitions. So, I'm within that range of 6 to 12. You could even say 6 would kind of work a little bit more on strength because there are some studies that say if you're working on strength, you're going to go from 3 to 6 repetitions. We're within that ballpark. But to be able to put me closer to the target and achieve my goals, I'm using science-based information and factual testing and results that have been done in meta-analysis. So for the people that end up talking about and saying, hey, well, one set is better for hypertrophy and strength gains, and especially for the people that are saying, oh, you only need to work out twice a week and you'll get superior results. Unfortunately, the world of sports science and testing, and we're talking researchers with PhDs and respected scientists across the globe from many different countries, show that this is not the case. So it comes down to that thing. If somebody says something that sounds too good to be true, then it is. It is too good to be true. What they're doing is selling you hype. And does that mean that you won't get any results? No, you will get some results if you're doing one set a couple times per week. You will get some hypertrophy gains. Of course, that's dependent upon your nutrition is getting hypertrophy because you have to have a higher protein intake. Strength gains, you're still going to have a nutritional component to that because usually with strength gains, you need more fuel, so you're going to have a higher carb intake, or you should anyway. But the fact is, if you work out twice a week, do one set, one exercise, and one set per body part, you will get some results. But I equate that to like taking a spoon. I don't even have a spoon here. Usually I have a spoon hanging around here somewhere. But it's like taking a spoonful of water and pouring it into the swimming pool and say, I filled up the swimming pool and you can too. Why don't you use... Why would you want to use a spoonful of water to fill up a swimming pool when you can fill it with a fire hydrant hose? That's what we're talking about here, folks. We're talking about using the most effective and efficient means in which to get strength gains, to get hypertrophy, to combat against sarcopenia, to fuel ourselves and build ourselves up so that we can live longer and happier lives and enjoy our retirement years and our golden years longer than the previous generations. That's what it's all about. It's just going to take a little bit of time. Now, what's really interesting, the fact that these one-set wonders that are promoting these routines, only working out twice a week, one set, per muscle group, saying that you'll get superior gains and so on and so forth, despite all of the studies that we just went over and more. I mean, there's a bunch of them. And they don't have any proof to back up what they say. They will quote Mike Mentzer in his book. But what's interesting to note is that Mike Mentzer's program, he never wanted to have it tested. He never wanted to have a control group, his workout routine, and a traditional workout routine of using multiple sets like we saw for strength and or hypertrophy gains. He never wanted to do that. So that's pretty interesting. Dorian Yates is kind of in the same boat, and the guy Arthur, I can't remember his last name, but basically the gentleman that kind of gave the idea of, one set workouts to Mike Mentzer. But again, his system was never tested and put to the test and put under strict controls, strict measurements, and so on and so forth to see what is the conclusion. Not having a biased conclusion of saying, okay, well, we're going to do a study and we're going to make sure that this wins. No, we can't do that, because if we leave it up to science and to find where the evidence takes us, their system is always found lacking. And so that's why they never recommend, that's why they never put their own studies together to say, hey, we're going to have a control group. They might say, well, look at all the people that I've helped and look at how much they've gotten bigger or stronger or whatever. Well, that pales in comparison to the results that they could get with multiple sets. And so I don't see what the big problem is. Well, I do see what the big problem is that these people who sell these one set, only workout twice a week programs are selling a program. And it's fast, it's easy, and it's cheap, and it makes promises that doesn't require a lot of time and energy. And nobody, if you have the choice of doing something quickly and getting good results versus a long time versus good results, you're always going to take the shorter road. You're going to take the shortcuts. But the problem is that science is involved, facts are involved, and you can only do so much with doing one set. And if you really want to get, for seniors, for recommending seniors for a routine who are behind the power curve when it comes to hypertrophy and strength, we need it the most. Why would you recommend a one set program per muscle group only 2 times a week that would give them minimal results, like we've seen in all these studies show that multiple sets? And we're not talking about doing, 50 or 100 sets per week. We're talking about, instead of doing one set per muscle group per week, we're talking about doing 2 or 3 sets per muscle group per week for 3 times a week minimum. Minimum 3 times a week. The recommendations for seniors and people to exercise is 3 to 5 times a week. So we're talking about the bare minimum of working out 3 times a week and getting superior results over the one set, 2 time a week people and their programs that are promising you the world. You could get better results with multiple sets. It doesn't take that much more time, and that's another thing. Oh, I only spent 20, 30 minutes in the gym, and look at the superior results. And they'll do this. And it's like, yeah, you look good, and you got some genetics behind you, but you do realize, according to science, you could be so much better. But they don't like hearing that. And I have yet to have anybody give any in-context study showing that one set is better than multiple sets, because when you throw all this information at them and these studies and this unbiased proof that has been tested over and over again, these people result to name calling. They result to, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Or they'll say, oh, well, I've been lifting longer than you. And it's like, no, that has nothing to do with it. Just because you've done something for a long time doesn't mean that you're right. Well, so that's why we have testing procedures. That's why we have the scientific process of testing and evaluating and see where the information takes us, and to get to a conclusion to put us in the ballpark and get us closer to reaching and achieving our goals in the most efficient and effective manner. So some people have been asking me about this and asked for me to do a video on some of the studies and meta-analysis of why I based my routine and how the results that I've got. I'm 57 years old, And again, I had some great results. But what I ended up doing is throwing off and testing and basically going to studies and finding is okay, what works and what doesn't. And then all I did was copy what these great scientists and researchers had come to the conclusion in their testing protocols of showing, okay, this works better than this. So I'm going to use this and I'm going to incorporate that into my routine. It's too simple. But unfortunately, for the con men and the hucksters that are trying to, 90-day abs or the fantastical claims of faster, better, cheaper, you don't have to work out much. It's only one set per body part, only 2 times a week. They don't like that because, and here's the rub, it interrupts their hype, and that's how they're making money. I don't sell programs. I share information of what works according to science. So, it doesn't matter how long you've been in the game. It doesn't matter, your experience. You can have all the experience in the world, but you can be 100% wrong. We know this. So that is why there are testing procedures. That's why we have research and why that is done so that we can cast off these myths and the hype and separate the good from the bad. And, really, what's the difference between doing, 1 set versus 2 or 3 sets? It's not much. It's not much. Yeah, you might have to spend more time in the gym, but again, is the efficiency and the effectiveness of doing 2 or 3 sets per body part 3 times a week minimum, is that more beneficial in the long run for your longevity and get you into a better physical condition quicker? What's more important? I would choose, the multiple sets. Yeah, I might have to spend a little bit of time in the gym, but we need to realize that anything that you do that you want good results is going to take time and energy. You can't shortcut yourself with those things. It's going to take time and energy. It's going to take time to go to the gym and let's say, I do an hour. I do an hour and 20, 15-minute workout. Out of the entire day, you're complaining about being in the gym 4 hours a week? Really? That is your main thing? Yeah, that doesn't wash. You're going to spend time doing nutrition. You're going to spend time looking at recovery and how to maximize your recovery and your sleep and so on and so forth. It all depends on how effective and efficient that you want to be later in life, but you have to take those steps now. Now, the good thing about it is that you can get to a place of where you use the multiple sets, you exercise 3 to 5 times a week, you do 75 minutes to 150 minutes of cardio a week for good heart health. And once you get to the level of your physique that you want to attain, you can maintain that and you can minimize the amount of time that you spend in the gym. Because it always takes more time to build muscle for hypertrophy, for strength gains. It's going to take more time. But once you get to the level that you want, you can now have a maintenance routine that is not so time and energy demanding. Okay? That's how it works. But these people want you to have you got to have the cake and they want to eat it too, but you can't do that. So again, when we're talking about all these different things, all these different studies, that we talked about here in the meta-analysis for strength and hypertrophy and single sets versus multiple sets, it really comes down to a place of where, you're either going to follow established facts and science or you're going to follow the hype, and you're going to believe, some people believe the hype. They absolutely do. But, when the studies show that like 2 or 3 sets is 40% better than a single set, 4 to 6 sets are 20% better than a single set. The math isn't hard. And I think that if you're truly concerned about your physical health and well-being, especially as we get older, you need to follow the science. You need to follow the facts, and you need to put time and energy into your endeavors to be healthy and have a long life. So anyway, that's what we got going on is all of this stuff. And like I said, I had like 20 more of these, and I'm like, yeah, this is going to take me probably about 30 minutes. And right now we're about 40 minutes right now, and those are just 5. And these are meta-analysis studies, multiple studies using trained and untrained people, men, women. It's really applicable to normal people like you and me today. And unfortunately, the One Set Wonder Group, there's no testing and there's no studies showing this, that their system is superior to multi-sets for strength and hypertrophy gains. So anyway, that's what we got going on, and I wanted to share that. Some people were asking me why I have my routine set up the way I do, why I do multiple sets. Is it really true about one set is better? Science shows, yeah, that's not the case. If you really want the gains, then you're going to have to put in the time and the energy. So that's it. Put any thoughts that you have in the comment section down below in regards to working out, health and fitness, and understand that resistance training can be body weight, it can be weights, it can be machines. The whole thing with, I know there's some people that argue back and forth that free weights are better than machines. Well, there's actually studies that have been done that show that they produce the same results. As long as you have a good volume, you have a good intensity, and again, combined with this, you can get the same results on machines as you can with free weights. And what I like about machines, especially being a senior myself, being 57, is that there's the added safety measures that are there that I can push past that 1 rep max, so I can start to go into 80, 90, and 100% of my 1 rep max. I can start doing, some ego lifting every once in a while, but that added safety factor, I feel comfortable doing that. Now, again, anytime that you go into those higher ranges of intensity, that there's also the possibility of muscle strains and, pulling some tendons and ligaments and things like that. And as we get older, we have to understand that the tendons and the ligaments and our muscles themselves, they're not as elastic, they're not as secure as they were or as strong as they were when we were younger. So again, we need to take everything, with a little bit of consideration and just be happy with what we have once we get to a physique that we want, and then we can run a maintenance routine. And again, that maintenance routine is going to be based on multiple sets, but you might drop down that maintenance routine down to a 60% of your 1 rep max, and you will still maintain that muscle. Granted that your nutrition is there and you can have proper protein to maintain what you have, along with the carb intake as well. So yeah, that's what we got going on. Comments, suggestions, like, subscribe, you know what to do, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.